No potato juice. Okay. Looks like we have a live stream established on YouTube. And as I grab the episode description and paste the link in, and Facebook and LinkedIn and all the other places, Ben, we're live and it's over to you.
Awesome. Well, hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us. This is Virtual Coffee with Ben. My name is Ben Blackman. I'm the Director of Development for Ridge. That's Royal Innovation Design Group, a group of innovation consultants based in St. Petersburg, Florida. Before we get started today, as always, I want to encourage everybody out there to go to the Ridge YouTube channel and our Facebook page to like and share all of our content. You can also schedule your own virtual coffee session with me where we can talk about how we can help your company innovate more effectively. This web series focuses on how companies strategically innovate, plan for the future, and create a strong culture for their employees. Today, I'm super excited to welcome Sarah Page. Sarah is one of Ridge's many talented visual strategists. She's also a multimedia artist and award-winning muralist. Of course, as always, we're joined by Jorn Appelt, the Director of Creativity and Innovation for Ridge. He's helping to run the show. We also have Philip Leslie, who is one of Sarah's peers. Philip is also a visual strategist at Ridge, and he's going to be doing a graphic recording of this show. So it's kind of meta. We're going to have a graphic recording at the end of this about an interview focused on graphic recording. So should be a lot of fun. Thank you all for joining me. Good morning to everybody. Sarah, want to start with you, of course. Your background is not actually in graphic recording. It's in nonprofit marketing and fundraising. What prompted you to want to leave that background behind and pursue a career in the arts?
Yeah, I feel really lucky because I feel like I left one dream job to go to another dream job. I've been in nonprofit since I graduated college, so for over a decade. And but ultimately, I had to take a chance on a dream. I've always dreamed of being an artist, and so the story goes that in 2018, about 2 years ago, a friend of mine encouraged me to submit artwork to the Shine St. Pete Mural Festival. They were doing an open call for a few walls to let local artists paint. And it was one of those things where I was like, yeah, right, that's never gonna happen to me. And lo and behold, my artwork was selected out of like 150 applicants. And it was amazing. It was a dream come true. I had lived in St. Pete for a few years at the time and loved going on tours of the murals and loved admiring all the work that all the artists did. So to be part of that was just truly amazing. And so I was only really able to do that though because my boss at the time, shout out to Edie Dopking at Quantum Leap Farm, she was so generous and loving and gave me the week off to paint and participate in the festival, and it was just the opportunity of a lifetime. And so I was changed after that. The experience literally changed me. Like I saw myself differently and I had a taste of what was possible. And when you have a taste of your dream, it's really hard to let that go. And so I had to keep going. So 6 months later, I'm sorry, Quantum, I had to go, but I'm still really good friends with them and I still go there often. So it was just from one amazing jumping point to the next.
That's awesome. Now, did you start, getting into art as a young child? Did you develop skills in painting or coloring? How did that develop over time to where you are now, which is obviously an award-winning muralist?
Yeah, my dad was very artistic. He was a draftsman. Like he took drafting classes in college, I believe, and he had amazing craftsmanship with his drawing ability. And so I always admired that about him. And he taught me a lot about how to draw. He taught me how to draw Yosemite Sam when I was a kid, and he would teach me perspective. So art was always something that I enjoyed. And, you know, people would always buy me art kits. I probably had 100 art kits for Christmas, you know, as a kid, but never pursued it in college because I was afraid that I was going to graduate with a fine art degree and then be a barista at Starbucks. You know, nothing against that, but I was like, I was scared. So I went the business and advertising route in college instead.
But it all worked out in the end, and we're certainly glad to have you here at Ridge. And we're going to show some of the work you've done here at Ridge in just a moment. But before we get to that, I'm curious to know a little bit more about what you call adventure artistry. You refer to yourself as an adventure artist. So I want to know exactly, what does that mean to you? What kind of projects have you been working on recently?
Yeah, adventure artist is the title that I've given myself, hashtag adventure artist. So adventure to me is brave exploration of our outside world, so through outdoor adventures, but also of our inside world. And so it's my commitment to discover truth and take action based on what I've learned. And I use my painting and illustration to express those truths. And I think that we're living in such a unique time right now, lots of opportunity for exploration. And most recently, because of the pandemic and everything that's going on, I've been dealing with some depression and some anxiety because of the state of unrest in the world right now. And I think it's something that a lot of people are feeling, actually. And so I painted some watercolor pieces that were black and white to symbolize this dance between darkness and light and sadness and hope. And it's been quite therapeutic, and for me and for others as well. A lot of people have really connected to it.
That's great. Certainly love to share that with everyone if we get an opportunity to after the show. So at Ridge, we don't really consider you to be a graphic artist or a designer, because you really do so much more than just draw pretty pictures. And they're certainly pretty. But in our world, we call you a visual strategist, because what you're really doing is you are translating complex business ideas and concepts that are discussed during keynote addresses or panels or breakout sessions, and also Zoom calls now. And you're putting those complex ideas and concepts into graphic recordings that have really lasting impacts. So I'm curious, how did you learn how to do that type of work, and how much more valuable is it to the intended audience that has that as a deliverable?
Well, you guys taught me. Joran trained me so well, and Jeff taught me a lot. And I've also learned so much from the rest of the team too, from Philip and Deanna and our other artists on the team. So it's not something that comes naturally. I would say it's like you have to be trained for the intensity of coming up with ideas on the spot. And so luckily a background in improv classes helped me with that. But you're also trying to condense a lot of complex information into its most simplest form. And it takes a lot of practice to do that. And so I think it comes with a lot of doing it over and over and over again, and that helps you get better and playing with what works and playing with what symbols relate to people. And it also takes a lot of listening, like what is the audience, or in this case attendees of the virtual session, how are they responding? What is making everybody say like, oh yeah, that thing, like I really relate to that thing. Whatever that thing is needs to go on the graphic record, however it's symbolized. And when people look at it later, they're like, oh man, she caught the dog drinking the glass because we said dogs are like sommeliers, and you know, just funny stuff like that. And it makes people feel like their ideas are being heard as well. You know, it's kind of the psychology of when you're in school and the teacher writes something on the board that you said, and you're like, what? That was my idea. And then it makes you want to participate more. So we see that a lot, that when people see their visuals and their ideas turning into visuals, it's encouraging and makes them participate.
That's great. And it really does aid in message retention. So we've shown that the retention increases by about 68% when you have these graphic records and you're displaying the intended message in a visual sense. I think we process information visually, 66,000 times better visually than just hearing it. So I know that your work has gone a long way in helping with these messages to have those lasting impacts. So I'd like to actually show our audience some of the work that you've done recently. So Jordan's actually going to pop up on the screen one of the graphic recordings you did for a recent keynote that was given by our founder and chief innovation officer, Michelle Royal. So you did this while Michelle was speaking at a virtual conference. So go ahead, can you explain the process of developing this particular graphic record? Where do you start? How do you choose the colors? How do you lay it out? As someone who, quite frankly, is horrible at anything related to art, I'm just curious how you even begin to put this together. But obviously the end result is gorgeous. I'd like to know what goes through your head when you're putting this together.
Sure. I'm actually looking back through it to see what I did here. So for these, we did 10 sessions, I believe, with ICBI 34, and I had created this template. So the blue bar you see at the bottom, the logo at the top, that was a template that I created ahead of time. I knew I wanted all of them to have that. And then you also start with the title. So we knew the title, Why Should Anyone Want to Be Led by You? So clever, Michelle. And so that's always going to be big. You want that to stand out. And then I think early on she said something about being a superhero, or you have to be the hero of your own story. So I knew from then that I wanted to have this superhero blasting out, to have this big image. And then once I established where that was going to go, everything else kind of worked in around there. So most often I worked from left to right. And so she told a story about the sinking ship as an analogy. And so that went in there, and how have I allowed this to happen? So the details around that story kind of fill in. And then as we go, if there's ever something that she says repeatedly, like they're your top 3 superpowers, I knew we wanted that to go on there later on. And then Michelle's really good at one-liners. She's like full of them. And so I needed to break bread with other people really stood out to me. And so I wanted to have this bread on the table. And so you kind of fill in things. You have big images that take up a lot of space, like the superhero and the boat and the table. And then from there, you kind of fill in around it with words and color and imagery. Her vision for 1 billion innovators is really cool. And so I wanted to spotlight that literally. And then innovation is typically seen with the light bulb. We show it like that a lot. So that's why I used that there. Yeah.
That's great. And I'm curious, because you're having to do this in real time, and obviously Michelle's speaking pretty fast, as most people would. Are you kind of doing just a quick sketch of everything and then going back later and filling everything in and refining it? How do you make sure that you kind of jot everything down when you don't have a lot of time?
I keep a notebook next to me. Okay. And so if I'm drawing something and then the speaker has moved on to something else, and I hear something good, I'll write it down with my pen so I remember what they say, and then go back to drawing what I was drawing. In the beginning, I was trying to capture every single word that a speaker said, and I'm learning as I go that instead of capturing it verbatim, you really want to just capture the essence of what they say and kind of the big ideas. And so that helps you listen for those big ideas and kind of let the other stuff go, because the other stuff is just supporting material typically for the big ideas.
Gotcha.
I don't sometimes I'll grid it out so that I know, like, I roughly want to create this much space for this section, and I'll know that I need to fill that space and move on. But I kind of tend to just go for it. I think Philip sketches a lot. So we all kind of have our own different styles.
Yeah. I was going to ask as well, I know in the past, you've done a lot of analog stuff. You talked about using watercolors. You've done murals with paint on the side of buildings. Now, especially in a COVID world, you've transitioned to doing a lot of your work digitally using tablets and stylus pens. What we just saw there is a graphic record that you did digitally. What has that adjustment been like? Have you had to, completely revamp the way that you approach things? What are the pros or maybe some of the cons of doing the digital work?
Yeah, well, it wasn't that difficult in an adjustment, really, because I have a background in graphic design. All through my nonprofit career, I was doing graphic design, and I'm familiar with digital programs, and I've used Procreate and the iPad in my own personal work. But I think the biggest difference is size. So you're going from this massive poster board, and you're using your body and you're stretching, and then you go to this little tiny screen, and in order to plan that space, you have to zoom in a lot, and so that's been the biggest adjustment, is scaling the work for digital. But there are a lot of benefits to doing digital work, some being that you can send it to the client immediately. There's no photo editing or anything. You don't have to transport these big boards around. You just shoot them the file and it's done. It can be easily shared across email, social media. You can text it to people. You can share it just like you would share any other image. And then also, digital lends itself to the fun time-lapse feature. So you can literally see the work being created after the fact, which is really fun because video is such an engaging piece of content right now. So to have both of those things is really helpful.
Yeah, and I would certainly encourage everyone to go to the Ridge website. On our blog, you can see some of that time-lapse video and some of the other pieces of work that Sarah did for this conference that we just showed you an example from. If you are just joining us, you're watching Virtual Coffee with Ben, and I'm Ben Blackman, the Director of Development for Ridge. I'm joined today by Sarah Page. Sarah is a visual strategist at Ridge, and we're, of course, joined by Jorn Appelt, Director of Creativity and Innovation, and Philip Leslie, who's actually doing a graphic recording of this show. Philip is also a visual strategist at Ridge. If you like what you're hearing, if you want to get more content, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's the Ridge YouTube channel, and our Facebook page as well. I usually give Jorn an opportunity to hop in and ask a question, but before we get to him, I did want to just ask Sarah, you started at a really young age doing a lot of this artwork. You said you were inspired by some of the stuff your dad had done. What advice do you have for other aspiring artists that are out there that are, trying to get their foot in the door or trying to improve their craft? What would you say to those individuals that might be watching?
Well, that's a good question. Practice. And I've learned that in my creation process, there's always a dip, and there's a spot where, or like the dark night of the soul. And artists will probably relate to that, where you're just like, I'm terrible. This is the worst thing I've ever created. I'm never gonna finish this graphic record on time. And then you just keep going, and that passes. And then you're like, oh, this actually didn't turn out so bad. This is amazing. So practice helps with that. It gives you more experience. And, the world of art the technology has changed art so much now. It makes it so much more accessible. It's giving artists the opportunity to get their work out there without having to pay anything. You can literally share your stuff on social media and sell your work. And it really connects artists to their audience in a whole new way. And so go for it. Go for it. Try it out. See what works.
Yeah.
Throw the paint on the wall and find out what you connect with.
Awesome. Well, Jorn, I wanted to bring you in. Sarah's already given you some props and said that you taught her so much about the process of translating business ideas into visuals. And so wanted to see what you had for Sarah.
Yeah, I mean, one of the other little known facts about Sarah is that she's also the Margot Robbie's stand-in and stunt woman on the Harley Quinn movies. So,
That's my
and even
side
if,
career.
Yeah.
yeah, and even if that's not true, you should totally put that on your resume.
Yeah.
Working with Sarah as part of the team has been really great because, like she said, she started in one spot and now she's, with the assistance of Jeff, who's our training manager, like we've got this program that she's kind of run that gauntlet, and the work has just really transformed over the years. And I think I would love to hear her talk a little bit about that journey, not creatively, but maybe without naming client names. I would love to hear first your absolute worst experience graphic recording, and then the best thing ever that's happened at a gig.
Oh man, that's such a good question. It's been a journey for sure. Obviously I'm thinking of our training session as like one of my worst experiences, but it was also an experience where I grew a lot. Goodness gracious. But on site, there's been a few moments where I've just frozen, just straight up been like, I don't know what they just said. I just missed everything they said. I have no idea what to draw right now. I have this big, giant, empty board in front of me. What the heck am I gonna do? And some of our clients are very specific industries, and so some of the information can be very technical, and they can speak very fast, and it's almost like another language. And so that has been a challenge at a few. And the pressure's always on when you're at a live event as well. So being in those like frozen spots was the beginning of the journey, I would say. And I've been able to, through Jeff's advice, gosh, he's just like the best cheerleader, and he's always just like, you can do it. And so I feel like I've got Jeff's voice in my head when I'm working, saying like, you're doing great, keep going.
He's the Rob Schneider to your Adam Sandler.
Yeah.
Is that what I'm hearing? Yeah.
You can do it. and then one of the best is when the people look at it afterwards and come up to the board and they're like, this is amazing, this is so cool. I've met some of the coolest people. Working in Denver was probably one of my favorite memories, and just like getting to be in the same room with some really cool speakers. And but I feel like I'm growing in confidence. I feel like my ideas are getting better, more creative. I feel like my drawing ability is getting a little better. And so once those things fall into place, it becomes a lot easier and a lot smoother, and you get into this flow state where you're not in your head so much, and it's all kind of just coming out. And at the end, you're like, wow, you almost surprise yourself.
I was wondering if you were going to bring up Denver, because that was one of the, I think one of the earliest times that we'd been on the ground as a team, and we got, you're in that rhythm of, you've got your luggage and you're on tour and you're at the Airbnb and we're rock stars and we're working hard, and then we're hitting up the bars and the Mexican restaurants at night or whatever, that moment, I think, where Lindsey Vonn was on stage and talking about her upcoming HBO documentary, which is out now, by the way, which is now the thing she was talking about then is now out, right? And that's a weird feeling too. You're like, oh, I remember when she was talking about filming that.
Yeah.
But she came to that conference and only tweeted one image out, and it was an image you drew of her dog, right? And it was on the graphic recording. She was there for 3 days and only tweeted once, and it was your work. So that was kind of cool.
That's very cool. Yeah. Yeah, that was amazing. I mean, John Elway was there. Nolan Bushnell, like,
Yeah.
I was like starstruck by that. I was like, what, this is the guy who created Pong, you know, who used to be Steve Jobs' boss, you know. It was just like, where am I right now? Like, I have those moments where I'm like, whose life am I living at this moment? You know, and the virtual work lends itself to that too, because now we can be part of who knows what, and not have to be in the airplanes and carry the luggage, but we get to be there with everybody
Right.
Instantly. So yeah, it's been very cool. It's been very cool.
Nice.
That's great. Well, before we wrap up, Sarah, I want to give you an opportunity to let our viewers know where they can find out more about your art and see some of the work that you've done. Where can they go?
Yeah, you can follow me on Instagram at Sarah Page Art, SarahPage. I have a website, sarahpageart.com. You can search hashtag Adventure Artist. I think I've tagged some stuff with that, but that's the best spot, Instagram and my website.
Great. And we'll be sure to provide a link when we put this video out so that everyone can see all your great work. Thank you so much for joining us. And again, if you're interested in learning more about Sarah's work and our work at Ridge, including Philip's great work, you can go to ridge.com. That's RIDG.com. Want to thank you again, Sarah, for joining us. Joran, thanks again for running the show. And Philip, thanks for all the great work I know you're doing behind the scenes. Can't wait to see this final graphic recording of today's show. Again, you can subscribe to our show by going to our YouTube channel. That's the Ridge YouTube channel, and go to our Facebook page to like and share some of our content. Thank you all for tuning in, and we will see you next time. Take care out there.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.